Americans have waited 2 years for the Mueller probe to wrap up, but House Democrats won't wait 2 weeks for the full report to be released. Attorney General William Barr informed Congress Friday he'd have all the classified information redacted from the report so it could be released by, quote, mid-April, if not sooner. The letter was met with howls of protest from House Judiciary Chair Jerry Nadler, who's threatening to subpoena the report if he doesn't have it by Wednesday. It is worth noting the same Democrats who don't want to give the Attorney General time to clean up the report were very quick to blast then House Intelligence Committee Chair Devin Nunes for releasing a GOP memo on the FISA warrant because he didn't redact classified. The whole thing certainly reeks of hypocrisy. But are Democrats really trying to have it both ways, or is this just an April Fool's prank gone way too far? Joining me tonight, former Assistant U.S. Attorney and Fox News contributor Andy McCarthy is back. Welcome back, sir.
Hi, Kennedy.
So what have you heard about the Mueller report that we haven't heard?
I haven't heard anything. I think what we're seeing is the Attorney General is scrubbing a 300 to 400 page report to make sure that it doesn't have grand jury material that shouldn't be released and classified information that shouldn't be released. He's in a catch-22. If he doesn't give it to them, they complain about that. If he gives it to them, but it violates the law, they'll be saying he needs to be removed over that. So I think he should just ignore the noise and keep his head down. I think we'll probably have the report, if not by the end of this week, probably the beginning of next week. Yeah,
it sounds like it's less than 2 weeks away, and there are several areas that he has to sort of clear, which, you know, the sources and methods, and that's what Schiff and company were so concerned about with the Nunes memo, not to mention some of the grand jury information, and also collateral third-party issues, people who may be innocent and not even accused of anything, or the subject or target of any part of the investigation, to leave their names and circumstances and some of their information out of this. Is that fair, or is that too heavy-handed?
No, it's totally fair. You know, look, in a normal criminal investigation, if the Justice Department doesn't bring charges, you never even get notified that the investigation has been closed. So because this is an extraordinary situation, there's going to be an extraordinary amount of disclosure. But the disclosure comes in violation of normal Justice Department rules where you wouldn't get anything. And the grand jury rules still apply, the grand jury secrecy rules. They're not as easy to work out. Actually, I thought I was a little surprised when I first saw Barr's letter that he relied so much on grand jury material because in my experience, you just get a judge to sign an order and you can disclose that. Turns out that that's a very hot issue in the D.C. Circuit now, which is where this is all taking place. And there's a big appeal now, which involves whether a court has the authority to issue a disclosure order on grand jury material if it's not for the rationales that are laid out in Rule 6E, which is the rule that covers the grand jury.
And speaking of disclosure, you wrote that you were a little surprised that Robert Mueller didn't take a side on the obstruction issue. And a lot of people bring up, well, you know, Democrats were really upset that James Comey displayed too much information when he described why he wasn't recommending charges. But there's a big difference between James Comey's role as the FBI director and Robert Mueller's role is in the Office of Special Counsel, because he is acting as a prosecutor, is he not?
Yeah, Comey had no authority to basically usurp the role of the Justice Department and make the decision about whether charges should be brought or not. The FBI investigates, and then the Justice Department decides whether to charge or not. And even though Comey, in his previous life, was a very fine prosecutor and a high-ranking Justice Department official, as the FBI director, he didn't have that authority. Mueller, by contrast, was really brought in to answer one question. I mean, I think it was pretty clear.
That was his job.
Right.
He was there to you know, possibly bring charges and bring some resolution to the question as to whether or not a sitting president could be indicted. Very smart of you to bring that up. We will talk with you again when we read the full report. Thanks so much, Andrew McCarthy.
Thanks, Kennedy.
Very good.